What is up, my brothers from another mother? Today's video comes as a request from a woman, which is a little bit of a change, and the subject description is liberal values with my extremely conservative and forceful husband. So she's having a little bit of a problem in her marriage. Before I hop into it though, I want to mention my channel sponsors again. We've got the Tactical Soap Company. If you're a dude and you shower, I assume you're not living in your mother's basement at 40 with a neckbeard playing video games if you're watching my channel. This stuff here is awesome. It's infused with pheromones. It will help you on the sexual marketplace, especially when you're engaging with women. There's a coupon code for 10% off in the description if you check out with Cooper. And I've also got another channel sponsor, which is a cool little company called the Beard Balm Brush. There's also a link for that in the description. If you check out with Beards in Cars, there's a discount code. It's a handy little brush/balm applicator, and you just kind of brush it into your beard like this. It's a handy little piece. Let's hop straight into today's video. I'm going to go and throw on the spectacles and minimize the screen here and hop right into her question. She says, just discovered your channel tonight. While I enjoy your informative approach towards many various important topics, I have some questions. Before I ask you questions, I'm going to give you a little background. So again, the subject line which caught my eye was liberal values with my extremely conservative, forceful husband. She goes on to say, I was married right after my first year of school and I'm pursuing a BSc in engineering. I'm raised with strong liberal ideologies. My parents were liberals. My mom is a strong feminist. My dad is extremely liberal. I identify as a feminist and liberal, but I'm not blinded by their respective principles. Dad is the strongest male influence in my life. Now my husband is very conservative and sort of forceful when we come to a disagreement. I guess you can call him an alpha. He doesn't hesitate to give his opinions on what he thinks is right. We never disagreed on financial issues, only ideological conflicts. We married after 4 months of dating. I'm still a student, but he is a professional. We have 13 years of age gap. I was just 19 going on 20 when we got married, and he's my first partner. So I'm assuming you were a virgin, you married him, and it sounds like very close to when you guys first met. He proposed to me, and I said yes after 6 days. I don't know if that's 6 days of dating, or you responded to him 6 days later after he proposed. Either way, the timeline sounds very fast and short. We're very much in love. I respect his values, but I also respect mine. I don't think he respects my thoughts, ideas, but he loves me very much. I was on scholarship. I worked during co-op. I guess that's co-op, not coop. I'm the coop. And I try to pay for things whenever I can. He's never asked me to pay for anything, but recently on a trip when I suggested to pay for a gift for our friend, he got offended. He never stopped me from paying for anything when we were dating, but now he suddenly thinks he has to be the caregiver as my husband. I like his role as a caregiver. I don't have a problem with that, but I also want my own space and chance to grow. All right, here we go. So my question is, how do I keep my ideology and individuality intact and have my own identity while having a loving relationship with my husband? He also treats me as if I'm too immature and young and doesn't consult me when he needs to consult regarding his profession or something as simple as buying a car. I'm going to hop straight in and respond to these two immediately because this guy's 13 years older than you. He's got some life behind him, of course. Why does he need to consult with you regarding what he does for a living, or something as simple as buying a car? I mean, if you're planning on having kids and his plan is to buy a two-door convertible Porsche Boxster versus a 5-passenger SUV, then I'd say you probably have an argument to make. But if it's but if he's tossing up between the BMW 3 Series and the equivalent Audi or Mercedes, why does it matter? Honestly, there's certain things that you need to deal with, and there's other things that you're going to make a mountain out of a molehill. And based on what you're telling me so far, this is mountain out of a molehill stuff. But I'll get into it a little bit more. I want to talk about something that MGTOWs get right and why this is a problem right now. Because he thinks I don't understand cars or his work, which is pretty true. So she's admitting she doesn't know fuck all about cars, but I still feel as though I'm being left out of making decisions. We're both Canadians with Bangladeshi and Indian descent, so culturally I'm submissive towards my husband. Adding the fact that he's a lot older than me, but I don't hesitate to disagree with him, and sometimes that leads to arguments and fights. Another question I have is it necessary for couples to have similar political, social, ideological views in a loving relationship? I'll answer that right now, and that's a hell yeah. If you go marrying, guys, if you go marrying a feminist, which this guy did, you're going to run into all sorts of problems. Feminist ideologies, especially if you're red-pilled or if you're conservative or a combination of those things, if you're a red-pilled alpha conservative, you're going to have a damn hard time being married to a liberal feminist. If you're going to seek long-term marriage, LTR, whatever it is that you're doing on a sexual marketplace, that's on you. But my suggestion is find somebody with similar values. I've said this before. You're conservative, find a conservative woman. If you're a liberal male feminist, then find a feminist woman. I mean, that's really on you to try to figure out for yourself. So forcing your ideologies and your beliefs on your husband, I don't know. Let's talk about what MGTOWs get right, because I kind of hinted on that a little bit, a few moments ago. I agree with pretty much everything that MGTOWs say in their observations of the sexual marketplace and the world that we live in the female primary order. We've talked about it from the rational male perspective. We've talked about it from many different angles. And the world that we live in as guys today ties us into an environment where we still have 100% responsibility, but 0% authority. And it's only in recent history, in the last, well, basically since the sexual revolution, that this has changed. As men, we've lived in an environment for centuries, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, where we had responsibility and authority over factors in our lives. Let's tie it into marriage. Monogamy and marriage is a recent phenomenon. It's, I don't know, roughly 10,000 years old from what my understanding is from the research that I've read. But the whole concept came about because we wanted to pass down, because we wanted to make sure that the farm, the oxen, the chickens, the goats, and the hens were passed down to our kids and they were biologically ours. Like, that's really why we came up with this notion of marriage and monogamy. It's really not a natural function of human nature. I'm not going to talk about that too much in this video because this is more about modern times. But for a very long time, for almost 10,000 odd years, we've functioned in an environment where men had 100% responsibility, but 100% authority over the family. And it's only in modern times now where this notion of, like, on the spectrum of things, on one side, there's gender equality feminism, which is fine. It's cool. I agree with that. Women should be able to vote, have a job, drive a car, whatever. Okay. Go for it. Enjoy it. I'm totally for it. But when it turns into a toxic environment, when it keeps pushing into the toxic feminism area, where it turns into a supremacist movement, where men are no longer admired and they're still held accountable, they're still held responsible, but there's nothing that comes along with that. You don't have the authority that came along with that for a very long time. So in today's world, this guy who's culturally dominant as a conservative, who marries a woman who's 13 years younger, let's just examine the facts. She's 13 years younger. She doesn't have a job. She's a student, so he's clearly supporting her. He's the breadwinner in the house. Basically, he brings home the bacon and she's supposed to cook it up. And she comes from a family, and I'm pretty surprised and shocked that she comes from a Bangladeshi family where both parents are liberal feminists. Which is a little bit bonkers, but anyway, they've basically programmed her to believe that women have all the authority in pretty much all the scenarios, which is why she's banging on about he's not consulting her about professional choices or the car that he buys. Again, there's a distinction. So I want to be clear. They need a family SUV to haul kids around in. Okay, but he wants to buy a Boxster convertible two-door car. That doesn't fit the plan. That's something that you can raise concern about. But if it's between, three different German cars, or, between a Kia, Hyundai, and a Honda, the equivalent model like a Accord or Camry, for example, honestly, stop it. Really, just stop it. This is the problem that we have in the world today, is that men are no longer respected, and they don't have any authority. It's full responsibility. Men suck. They're rapists. They have toxic masculinity, toxic testosterone, whatever you want to call it. But guess what? All of those physical traits of strength, greater lung capacity, endurance, muscle mass, all those things, well, gee, they come in handy when there's a fire. They sure come in handy when there's a war and you got to protect the country from the invading armies. Those are the sorts of things that come in handy in times of crisis, which is when it's okay to be a man. But any other time, you're not allowed to exercise your masculinity, and it's referred to as toxic, or in this case, as she put in the title, forceful. It's not. I strongly believe, ma'am, and I'm not going to mention your name because you wanted me to keep it, behind the scenes. A guy has a lane and a woman has a lane. And sometimes there's a crossover between those lanes in the highway where you switch lanes, but not very often. Men and women are different. Don't listen to the bullshit they've pounded in your head with liberal feminism where men and women are the same. They're not. Men and women are extremely different. Like you've seen people that have been fired from their jobs for pointing to, cold hard truths, scientifically based cold hard truths about the differences between men and women. And I think that the most successful long-term relationships and marriages that I've come across, men and women that I've interviewed, talked to, friends of mine, they are successful on a long-term basis because the man is valued and respected, and so is the woman. They're complementary to each other. A woman is supposed to be a complement to a man's life, not the focus. And what she's trying to do in this environment, and her complaint is essentially she wants to be more of the focus, which is what toxic femininity teaches women in these, feminist ideologies. Women are slowly waking up to it, and they're starting to recognize that it's okay to allow their husband or their man to make masculine decisions, masculine choices, without consulting with their wife over simple, basic things. Those women tend to do well on a long-term basis and find a lot of contentment and happiness. There was a study that I read months ago. You guys can look it up. I'm sure if you Google it, it's your friend. But it concluded somewhere along the lines that women find a great deal more happiness and contentment in a marriage, in a long-term relationship, where typical gender roles are resigned to. He knows how to change the tires on the car from summer to winter tires, or deal with the oil change and the frequency and the schedule on that, or cut the grass and trim the lawn and that sort of thing. And she's great with domestic sort of chores within the home. But the problem with toxic feminism is it teaches women that, men and women are exactly equal. But it actually even goes further than that now. It goes to a place where it's starting to teach women that they are supreme. They are supremacist to men. And we've seen cases and stories along the lines over the years where we've seen reporters publicly broadcast, it's endorsed by the news outlet, that the world would be a better place if we killed 80% of men. Stories like that, which is shocking. It like makes me sick, honestly. So to come at me with, I don't know if you're looking for sympathy or empathy, for your story, or what should I do? But what you should do is toe the feminine line, and he needs to toe the masculine line. And that's what creates happy long-term marriages. As soon as you start stepping on his dick and telling him what to do when it comes to choices in his business or career, or cramming things down his throat, which he spent his life making choices and decisions on, you're going to run into problems with your marriage. He's going to resent you. You're going to resent him. You're going to end up in an environment where you hate each other. You're not going to have sex, and you're probably going to see the marriage break down over a long-term basis. These types of relationships over a long term are very, very hard to make work, and neither couple, neither one in the relationship finds a lot of happiness. One of the things that you'll hear Rollo say over and over again on Redman Group broadcasts is polarity is what keeps couples connected. And he's talking about essentially polarity in the masculine and feminine role. Okay, not conservative liberal ideologies, for example. Those are two totally different things. So, I mean, if you go around in life thinking that you can Guys, I'm going to talk to you specifically because that's like 92% of my audience. You know, if you go around thinking that it's a good idea to wife up a feminist, what I'll do on the top right of the screen, I'll put a card up that Sean T. Smith put out the other day, a video on why you shouldn't date a feminist or marry a feminist. And he explains it in very clean and concise terms. I'm not going to go over it because I'm going to butcher it. And I think he did a great job of describing it. So again, card up on the top right. You guys should watch that video. Ma'am, if you're watching this video right now, you should check it out too. I think it's incredibly important that guys recognize that if you're going to seek happiness and fulfillment and a long-term relationship with a woman, do it with a woman that matches your ideologies and values, but make sure there's polarity between the masculine energy and the feminine energy. When those lines blur, you run into all kinds of messed up problems. And this is just a small example of what we're seeing in today's world on the sexual marketplace. I'm going to wrap it up on that note, guys. I want to thank you for watching today's video. If you've enjoyed it, smash the like button. Leave a comment below if you have some feedback. If there's anybody that needs to see this video, why don't you share it with them or put it somewhere on social so it can be found. Also, my men's community is open to guys that are working on becoming a better version of themselves. I want to clarify and state that it's not for whiny, emotional men that throw hissy fits. The men that we're looking for in the community are guys that are masculine, that are looking to do the work on themselves and become a better version of themselves and honor that part of their masculinity. So I'll put a card up on the top right if you want to join us there. It's $10 a month. Consider it like a Netflix membership. There's premium video content that doesn't go on the channel. There's monthly Q&As, which are live with me exclusively, and a private Facebook community. Thanks for watching today's video. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.